Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments, and thank you for joining me. For this video, since it's such a special occasion, I wanted to let you all know that I color coordinated my outfit to match the specific Apple computer that I'm using to answer your questions in this video. So without further ado, welcome to the grand finale of the 16,000 subscriber Q&A series. And if you've been paying attention to this channel at all, you know just recently I surpassed 17,000 subscribers. So we are going to get through the 16,000 subscriber Q&A series. Then we're going to move on to bigger, better, and badder things. Now, I tried to answer every single question. I'm pretty confident at this point that every time I do a Q&A, due to the amount of questions I get asked, it is possible that I missed one or two. If that's the case, as long as I don't wake up one morning and hit the delete button on this channel, if this channel continues to grow and we have another Q&A, feel free to ask your question again if it was missed. I do not have time, unfortunately, to go back and fill in any gaps or do another session of this already gigantic multi-session 16,000 Q&A series. So now that that caveat is out of the way, let's get right into the questions. First question, I want to warn you, this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to answer this in a way that probably is going to surprise a lot of you. So the first question is, Sean, do you have any general advice about money? Now, I got to admit, when I was first asked this question, when I went through, I read a lot of these questions that I was being posed with in this Q&A. This question really took me back a bit, and I thought about it for a minute, and I said, yes, I have some excellent advice about money, but is my audience ready to hear it? Because I know if you watch me on YouTube, you probably watch other YouTubers, you probably watch TikTok, you probably watch and listen to other so-called social media influencers. And for the record, I do not consider myself to be a social media influencer. As a matter of fact, I hate the term when it is applied to me. More on that maybe in another video, but let me answer this question. This is what you need to understand about money if you want to be successful. And this is something that none of the other guys out there in the finance space, collectible or not, want to tell you. Money is both abstract and also rational and logical. And I'm going to take this a step further. If you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, if you are economically disadvantaged, if you are considered to be a have-not, or maybe you're just starting out in life, maybe you don't know what you're doing, and because you're young, you haven't had time to build up a net worth. You haven't had time to invest properly. You're doing everything right. It's just you haven't had time to build a net worth. If you're somebody who is struggling with money, it is very rational. It is very logical. Case in point, let's say that you go to work tomorrow morning and you're struggling to make ends meet. You're making maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's your only income. You have very little in the way of assets. You go to work and your boss tells you, hey, I'm sorry, you're being downsized. You no longer have a job. Money has a very significant meaning to you at that point because you're looking at it through the lens of scarcity. Because now you were just struggling to get by. Now you just lost your job. Now you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have $3,000, $4,000 going out every month. I have to come up with a minimum of $3,000 to $4,000 just to survive. In that moment, money becomes even more profound. It's very logical. It's very rational. You know that you have money going out, and this is how much you need to come in to cover just those basic expenses. But now for a minute, let's venture on the other side of the spectrum. Let's say that you're somebody who's been gunning it. You've been working very hard. You've been investing. You're getting up there in your 50s, 60s. You listen to people like me that tell you to put X number of thousands of dollars per year in a diversified portfolio, mainly S&P 500 index, other index funds, and the like. And now you're somebody that has a net worth of $500,000 or $1 million or 1.5 million, or maybe you've been gunning it so much you've got 2 million or higher put away. Well, now money becomes abstract, because the higher you go in net worth, the more abstract money becomes. So let's use this as an example. Let's say that you're a millionaire. You have a cool 1 million net worth. I don't care how it's invested. I don't care if you're including your primary residence, brokerage accounts, collectibles that you own, even if you happen to have, which I'm against, Bitcoin or gold bullion. However you factor this in, you're a millionaire. And now you need to come up with $10,000 to meet an unexpected expense. Well, $10,000 is only 1% of $1 million. So let's say that $1 million across the board invested is giving you 5 to 6% per year. That's $50,000 to $60,000. So if you only need to come up with $10,000, you're going to be fine. It's abstract. It doesn't mean that much to you because you're on the side of the equation where you have money, you have assets, you look at things in a whole other manner and perspective. However, now let's assume that other guy that just lost his job, he gets hit with a $10,000 unexpected expense. What do you think happens? To him, that could cause him to pretty much lose everything. That could cause him to fall off the proverbial chessboard of life. That could cause him to potentially have to start over. And if that dude is in his 30s, 40s, or heaven forbid, his 50s, he's going to have a problem recovering from that. This is why you have to be careful what advice you take on the internet. This is why I've often said a lot of people who are disadvantaged economically are listening to very bad advice on the internet. They're listening to people who may have money, and if they do, they're preaching from a point of view where money is in abundance to them. And they also look at it in an abstract manner. If you are somebody that is struggling to get by and you attempt to take that advice, it's not going to work for you because you are not at that level yet. This is why when I give advice on this channel to the average person, they don't like the advice that I'm giving. It causes them to react in a certain manner. This is why I get into so many arguments with the Bitcoin crypto bros, the gold bugs, the people that think they could put all their money in Pokemon cards and they're going to be okay. I look at things from the abstract because I have money. If you don't have money, you are looking at everything from a rational and logical perspective. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I am saying is, if you're listening to a lot of people that are preaching to you, put all your money in Pokemon cards, go take out a loan and flip houses, do crazy things, bet on penny stocks, trade options. Most of those individuals are coming at you from the perspective where money is abstract. If you take that advice, most likely it is not going to work. That's why when I give advice on the internet, I pull back and I go, okay, what would I really want someone to teach me if I was in that predicament and had nothing? And that's exactly what I learned from my mentors. So this is something you're not going to get in any other channel. It's become clear to me as of that, especially when I watch all of these other kind of, how do I want to say this? These people like Graham Stephan, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, all of those individuals, I hate to say this, they're actually hurting you more than helping you. If you really want to build a net worth, you do so over time. You grind at it. You put money away in a brokerage account, in a well-diversified portfolio, and you never touch it. That's the secret to building wealth. Some of you guys have this fantasy where something's going to happen in your life where you're going to come into a lot of money. Whether you think you're going to create a multi-million or a multi-billion-dollar business, you think if you just keep throwing things against the wall like spaghetti, something's going to stick and it's going to work out for you. That is not how the majority of wealth is made. There is a very small percentage of people that get extremely lucky. Most of those individuals, though, I know you don't want to hear this, already came from wealth. Mark Zuckerberg's dad, when he founded Facebook, his father told him he can go to Harvard or he would buy him a McDonald's franchise. I guarantee you there's very few people watching this video that had that same advantage growing up. Bill Gates was already driving a Porsche when he founded Microsoft. You can even make an argument. Steve Jobs, a lot of people claim Steve Jobs was down to earth. He came from a very upper middle class family and was financially established. Go and look what the childhood home he grew up in is worth today, even without the Steve Jobs name attached to it. You guys are going to see that it's not as easy to build wealth as a lot of these social media influencers make it out to be, because they're looking at money in a different manner than you. They're giving you bad advice. You're taking that advice and you're putting insane pressure on yourself, wondering, how come I can't do what they did if I'm following their playbook exactly? Because you came from different backgrounds and you see money from different perspectives. That's the key. That's really what it comes down to. If you guys want me to expand on this in another video, I gladly will. I've already spent 11 minutes on this question, so I want to go to the next question. I just want to let you know that's basically the key as to why certain people succeed and others don't. It's how you view money. And what happens is, this is why I'm pro college education. If you would actually go to college and actually get a degree in business, economics, finance, if you actually apply yourself and have an open mind, you're going to walk away with that college degree. Your mindset is going to be inherently changed. You're going to be able to think in new ways, new patterns, and new pathways that is going to help you see the world different. I am so sick of all this crazy advice on TikTok, on YouTube, that says a college degree does not matter. I hate to tell you, if you went through 4 years, minimum 4 years of college, not mentioning the people that have master's degrees and above, and you think your college degree was worthless, it probably was, because you studied the wrong thing. If you came out of college thinking that you got ripped off, I hate to tell you, that was on you. That is not on our education system. I'm sorry if I sound like an elitist, but I truly believe if you go through college, you have an open mind, it does change the way you think. This is why when I get into arguments with the Bitcoin bros, Sean, you don't understand. You keep saying that Bitcoin has no underlying cash flows. All you got to do is take Finance 101 and you're going to learn the truth. I'm sorry. And some of you would be put in that predicament. You would be arguing back and forth with the professor. You'd get nothing out of it. That's why some of you, I hate to say this, you deserve your lot in life if that's you. If you're attempting to better yourself and you're arguing with the people that are trying to help you, that's solely on you. That is not a predicament of where you are in this world, your status, where you are in the overall economic function of our capitalist society. That is solely on you. Next question. Sean, what are your thoughts on obscure Japanese-only vintage video game systems as an investment? Okay, I went from offending all of you with my advice on money to talking about obscure Japanese-only vintage video game systems as an investment. See why I love this channel? It's so diverse. What other YouTuber out there gives you this type of content? Just tell me in the comments section. Tell me so I can go retire. Tell me so I can hit the delete button on this channel and just end this already. So let's answer this great question. All right, first of all, I have a special place in my heart for a lot of obscure Japanese video game systems. The two that come to mind right now, because you did use the term obscure, so I'm not going to bring up, obviously, the Sega Saturn, the Dreamcast, the Mega Drive, the PC Engine. The two I will bring up, though, FM Towns Marty and the Supergrafx. If you don't know the FM Towns Marty, I would encourage you to look it up. It's a fascinating system. It's very expensive. The FM Towns Marty is known for having the best port of the game Splatterhouse in existence, even beating out the PC Engine and TurboGrafx port of that game. Now, here's the bad news. If you go and look up how much Splatterhouse costs for the FM Towns Marty, you're going to see it's like $850, $900. It's definitely worth it if you want to play the game. The Supergrafx is an incredible system. It has probably one of the best home ports of Ghouls and Ghosts. I think it's Super Ghouls and Ghosts, if I remember correctly. Excellent system. So I love both of them. Here's the thing, though. From an investment standpoint, I do not recommend them because they are so niche and because the prices have already exploded over the last 10 years or so. So if you're going to go into the market now and you're going to buy an FM Towns Marty, it has to be for your own enjoyment. I will also tell you two things about the FM Towns Marty. Number one, the CD-ROM drives in those systems are completely unreliable. You're going to have problems. And number two, the controller pretty much sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's usable, it's playable, but it's not the best controller. The Supergrafx, believe it or not, Supergrafx has stood the test of time. Some of the games for that system, I think there's only like 5 or 6 exclusives. Some of them, though, are very good. I already named Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Great game. But from an investment standpoint, you need to understand it's a limited market because of how quickly prices have risen on these items. Next question. I want to put a trigger warning in front of this particular question. You're going to see. So I just want to state, if you are a little bit squeamish towards anything relating to childhood trauma, possibly including sexual abuse, please skip ahead like 3 or 4 minutes on this video. The question is, Sean, name at least one movie that made you cry. In all honesty, I could name tons of movies that have made me cry, but the one that really stands out is the original Butterfly Effect. If you never saw the Butterfly Effect, the original that starred Ashton Kutcher, it is an excellent movie. It, of course, is very far-fetched. It's about a guy who went through some significant childhood trauma. I'm going to word it that way. And a girl that he liked, a girl that he grew up with, his would-be love interest also went through the same trauma that he did with this particular neighbor who was I hate to say this, a pedophile. It's the truth. It's a great movie, though. And what happens is he discovers that he keeps a journal. And he discovers that if he changes things in the journal, he can actually change what happened in the past. So what he tries to do is he obviously tries to change the events of that childhood trauma so that he and the girl could live happily ever after without that chapter in their lives hanging over them. But he realizes as he starts to change things, it changes other things in the realm of life and the universe that he exists in. So he realizes towards the end, the only way to save himself and her is to actually let her go. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this, but just know the ending is probably going to leave you in tears if you are an empathetic person, if you actually understand the type of trauma that they went through and its effect on how people behave in adult relationships and in life in general. This movie will leave you in tears. I am putting a trigger warning here, though, because of obviously the themes that this movie deals with. It is most likely not for everybody. I think the movie came out early 2000s. I watched it right when it came out, and I can tell you I was phenomenally blown away by this movie. Now, I will tell you, they did do some direct-to-video sequels. Skip the direct-to-video sequels. They all suck. Just stick with the original. And I will tell you this. I am not a huge Ashton Kutcher fan. But I will say, the role that he played in this movie was excellent. I do have a profound new respect for him since I discovered this movie and watched it. I will say that, because I was never a fan of his. I really wasn't. I don't know what it is about him. He just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I just wasn't a fan of his. I'm more of a fan of Ben Affleck, Leonardo DiCaprio, Ryan Phillippe, actors of that caliber. But I will say this movie really changed how I view Ashton Kutcher as an actor. He really has range to be able to pull off this role. So it is something that you should check out if that type of movie interests you, but you will most likely be left crying, especially if you can relate to the story at all. Next question, trigger warning over. Apologize if I've traumatized any of you. Next question. Okay, Sean, you've talked about your time early on eBay. Do you have any tips for people who want to become big sellers on eBay? I am going to be doing more videos on this in the future. I will tell you, if you want to be successful on eBay in the year 2024 and beyond, you have to know how to do 3 things. You got to be able to source merchandise. You got to be able to sort it and process it quickly, and you got to be able to list it and sell it quickly. It's all about the rotating of inventory. It's not so much about the profit margins. If you're somebody out there that lives near a great deal of thrift stores, flea markets, maybe you live down south and the weather's warm all the time and there's always flea markets, yard sales, antique marts that you can go to, you can source merchandise, you can make it work. Now, would I ever recommend you become a full-time eBay seller in the year 2024? Believe it or not, the answer is no. Just due to the time value money, the opportunity cost. If you're somebody that can go work for corporate America for $30, $40, $50 an hour, you're better off doing that. If you want a side hustle though, if you have the means to get that type of job, I would tell you then just do eBay part-time. So that's really the best advice I can give you. Again, there's going to be more videos on that in the future. Just remember the 3 S's that I told you. Source, sort, sell. That's the key to your success. More on that in another upcoming video. Wink, wink. Next question. This is one that I thought I covered previously, but I realized I did not. So I want to apologize deeply to the person that asked this. Sean, by any chance, have you covered Persian rugs? And I did think that I answered this before. It turns out I did not. So I do want to touch on the topic of Persian rugs. First of all, for those unaware, back in the 1980s and 1990s, there was a massive boom in the collectability, in the sale of Persian rugs. Authentic Persian rugs were selling for a significant premium. Unfortunately, after the 80s or 90s, a lot of reproductions, a lot of fakes entered the marketplace, and you can guess what happened next. Prices plummeted, unless if you had something that was really significantly rare or in demand or something that could be easily authenticated. You would lose money if you were going to sell into the marketplace because most people that just wanted to own a Persian rug, they weren't interested in authenticity. This is really what dragged down a lot of the antique market in the early 2000s. The rise of fakes, the rise of people just wanting the look without wanting to pay for the real item in question. I have videos planned on that as well that are coming soon on this channel. So the thing with Persian rugs, if you know what you're doing, if you're going through a high-end auction house, if you're going through a dealer, there is a market here for like the top 5 to 10%. Anything outside of that, you're most likely going to struggle finding a buyer for. I do not recommend anybody invest in Persian rugs for that reason. Let me say that again. Persian rugs right now are not a great investment over the long term in the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, obviously, there's always exceptions. If you're an expert in Persian rugs, you know how to identify them. You have an outlet to sell them. You do you. But I'm just saying, for the average person that likes Persian rugs, avoid this market from an investment standpoint. Next question. Sean, how has being a collector affected your personal life? You know, this is a great question. In all honesty, it hasn't all that much. Believe it or not, I'm a very private person. So most people really didn't know how far deep I was into antiques and collectibles until this channel premiered. Like, I don't really talk about my collecting or my investments in antiques and collectibles with friends unless if they're into it too. My family does know. They don't know how deep I'm into it. They kind of figure it out now. I also really don't talk about it that much with the women I date. It has become a topic of subject more often because of this channel. So if somebody does date me and they know that this channel exists, or they know that I write for Antiques and Auction News, the subject will come up. But a lot of my former girlfriends are actually mad at me because until this channel premiered, they didn't know how deep down the rabbit hole it went. Meaning I would never like take them to my safety deposit box and go, hey, I have a 6-figure coin currency collection. Check this out. Like, I never felt comfortable enough to do that. So in all honesty, it really hasn't affected my personal life. Even my house. Like, when, like, I have a girl over, let's say, all the doors upstairs are closed. Like, they don't know that I have Lego, that I have video games, that I have all this stuff. The only thing that really there is clues to, like, I do have vintage advertising on the walls. I have movie posters on the walls. Stuff like that can kind of give it away. or at least tip the scale where, hey, this guy's into some interesting stuff. But overall, most people really don't know until they really get to know me. Like, I don't even bring it up on a first date. If the question is asked, I just tell them, hey, I moonlight as a consultant and a published author in the art, antiques, and collectibles trade. That's how I word it. And most of the people that I'm dating, they really don't ask anything further, at least on the first couple of dates. Now, when it gets to like date 5, 6, that's when they'll start asking more questions. But they just usually file it in the back of their mind. What I do have a problem is, if I meet somebody online dating, usually they Google me, and that's when all of this comes up. That's usually when I have to have a conversation with them because they'll bring it up right away. So that's just something interesting about me. I am pretty private in that regard. My one friend, who I've known since I was 17, he's kind of into the gaming and Pokemon side. He's in his 50s, so he does know about me having an interest in this stuff, because obviously we talk about gaming, we talk about some of this stuff. My other friends, though, they're not into collecting at all, so I don't even bring it up unless they ask. As a matter of fact, I even tell my friends and family, please do not watch me on YouTube. Please do not subscribe to this channel. Please do not read the articles that I write for Antiques and Auction News. And people are surprised about that. The reason why I do that is I don't want it to cloud their opinion of me because they already know me. So in other words, if you already know me and you're watching this channel, maybe I say something that surprises you, because I tend to bring up more personal stuff on this channel than I do even with the people in my daily life, which does, of course, shock some people. For the record here, I do have more of an avoidant attachment style. So it's not easy for me to open up to people at all times. That's why if you work with me in corporate America, believe it or not, I tend to keep people at a distance. That's just the nature of who I am. I have tried to work through that. Usually when I get into a relationship with somebody, I usually tell them openly, hey, I don't text much. If there's something you need from me, if you communicate with me in an open manner, I will gladly work with you to make sure that your needs are met. I'm not somebody that keeps bothering you. I'm not somebody that's going to keep calling you, texting you, and the like. I don't like to be texted constantly either. So usually that's a good way to segue into that conversation. So it's just something about me where I don't usually like to feel emotionally vulnerable. That's why there's a lot of people that were shocked when they found out that I have a YouTube channel, because I was dead set against it for many, many years. I pushed back. There were people trying to pull me in the loop. I remember when Rudy with Alpha Investments first premiered, people were like, Sean, you got to see, you got to do a channel. And I was like, no, I will never go on YouTube. Then it just so happens I went through significant heartache. I was sitting down here and I just realized, you know what, now or never. Let's turn the camera on and see what happens. Well, this is the end result. Here I am, 17,000 some subscribers later, over almost 2 million views. People know me as a household name, some of them in the collectible space, even in the finance space. So that's how it started. Next question. Sean, could you address the importance of factoring in insurance on items and how that affects your return? Insurance is an expense. So if you are attempting to invest in these items, remember, gains in collectibles and antiques are taxable, and they're taxed at the full amount. It's not like a short, or I want to say a long-term capital gains tax. Collectibles are taxed at the full amount. I did a video on taxes. You can go and watch it. What I will say, you have to track your expenses. You have to track what you pay for these items. You have to track what you sell them for. You have to track how much storage, maintenance, reholdering, if you're talking about graded collectibles, if you're talking about insurance, if you're talking about even running a safety deposit box, all that can be deducted as an expense. So that is something you have to keep in mind. There are a lot more expenses with collectibles, with any type of physical item that you're choosing to invest in, than that of financial assets. This is why you should, I know I sound like a broken record, you should already have a well-diversified financial portfolio in index funds, mutual funds, ETFs, and the like before you start to venture into diversifying in antiques and collectibles. Next question. Sean, I got and stayed married to my wife 22 years ago. What's dating life for a 46, 47-year-old man these days? Well, I am going to be 48 years of age the end of this year, December, right around Christmas. I'll turn 48. I can tell you the dating world sucks for both sexes. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you have, what you look like. The dating world sucks right now. And I can go into a lot of different reasons why. It really comes down to knowing yourself, healing from any childhood trauma that you have, and making sure that you want to get into a relationship to give love, not just receive. Relationships work best when the person getting into the relationship gets into that relationship to give rather than receive. Always remember, you have to clean up a lot of your wounds before you do get into a relationship. And you want to get into a relationship with somebody healthy. You want to attract emotionally healthy and available people. You yourself have to be emotionally healthy and available. That's the best advice I can give you. There is a lot of toxic advice out there on the YouTube, the red pill dichotomy, black pill, all this crazy crap about, push-pull dynamics, playing games, being avoidant, all this crazy stuff. And it really breaks my heart because a lot of you guys that play in that toxic universe, you're just going to attract a crazy chick. I'm just here to tell you, you're most likely going to attract somebody who has borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and unfortunately, you're not going to be able to build a healthy relationship dynamic with those type of people. And this is also where, if you are somebody who is single in the dating world, you have to take a good look in the mirror, and maybe you yourself need to get into therapy, and you need to clean up some of your issues, because most people that are going to want to date somebody, they're going to want an emotionally healthy person. If you go out into the dating world, there's different levels of emotional healthy. And that's why you can go out there and you can attract somebody. Usually water finds its own level. That's what you got to understand. This is really what I learned. And it took me almost to the age of 37, 38 years of age to figure all this out. Water usually attracts its own level. So if you come to me and you go, hey, Sean, I'm attracting all of these crazy chicks. You know what it tells me? You really like crazy chicks. And number two, are you yourself crazy? Or do you just have significant childhood trauma that you didn't deal with, that you're drawn to those women because they remind you of your upbringing at home? And when I say upbringing at home, notice I didn't say toxic environment. You can have two loving parents that have been married for decades, that are still married to this very day, that did the best they could with you, but they have their own trauma. They have their own issues. Case in point, my parents are still married to this very day. My parents have been married more than 50 years. I can tell you they both came from significant trauma. And while growing up, I had everything I needed to succeed. My father, back in the 1990s, he was making like $70,000 or $80,000. Today, that would be equivalent to like $130,000, $140,000. So we lived in a nice house. I had an in-ground pool. I had a jacuzzi. I had an arcade in my basement. I had access to all these awesome video games and toys that I talk about on this channel growing up. But the problem is, my father was also very avoidant. My mother, on the other end of the spectrum, smothered me. So when I got into the dating world, what type of women do you think I went after? I went after borderlines and narcissists because they represented my parents growing up. So that's where you kind of have to take a look back and go, okay, do I have any trauma in my background that I got to work through? And significantly, I did have a lot of trauma, and I had to work through that. And that's why I say, if you've done the work and other people haven't done the work, you're going to have a hard time in the dating environment. I could go on in that. I don't want to get too detailed in some of the things that happened to me. Just know, though, there were things that happened to me that I carried through into my adult life that actually affected some of the relationships that I've had. And I don't want to trigger anyone, so we're not going to do a full-fledged Q&A on Sean's trauma here. But just know there was a lot of stuff that I had to work through. That's why I do have to this day, I talk about this. I have celiac disease. I have other autoimmune issues. A lot of those autoimmune issues came from the trauma I was dealt at a fairly young age. So I don't mean to disappoint anyone. Thank you for tuning in to the 16,000 subscriber Q&A grand finale. I'm sorry if anybody feels a need to unsubscribe after listening to this video. There will be more Q&As, assuming this channel continues to grow, assuming I don't delete this channel one day soon. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Stay positive, stay kind, and please, if you do need help, if you've suffered any type of significant trauma, please remember, you have to get help. You got to clean up your issues. Otherwise, you're going to bleed all over the people that didn't cut you, and that is never good. You are not at fault for anything that happened to you. I want to make that very clear, but you are responsible for fixing it. And that is how we make the world a better place. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you also if you had to unsubscribe after hearing all this. I understand. Just go do you. Thanks.